everybody, and good evening, and welcome to an extremely special episode of The Guys Who Stare at Stats. I'm Cade Kennedy. Andrew Santangelo will be here in just a moment. I mean, he is here, but he's not. That's the power of the camera, ladies and gentlemen. But we have a lot to talk about on this show. It's the eve of the NFL draft. There are so many things going on in the sports world, whether it be football, basketball, hockey, you name it. There's probably something going on with it today. But I want to take today to do something a little bit different on this show, something we don't really talk about, which is, well, ourselves. This is something we don't really do a whole lot of on this show, and so I felt today would be a good time to talk about the people that make this show what it is. And so today I am interviewing Andrew Santangelo. Andrew, as you know, was the first guy that I decided to do this show with. We decided we had the same interest to do sports radio or something similar enough. And so we came together and created the Ranger Room, the first show here at NWTV7. Andrew frequently started showing up on The Guys Who Stare at Stats, which is the show with myself and Connor. And ever since then, we've enjoyed this full year of doing this at this point. And so I'm thankful. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, a guy who needs no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway because that's what we do on this show. Please welcome to the show, Andrew Santangelo.
Thanks for having me, Cade. I'm very excited to get going here, and I can't believe it's been a year already. It feels like we just started this.
I know. I still remember back in August when we had the idea to come up with this, and here we are in April, a full sports season nearly underway, and yawn at this point. It's just hard to believe. But to get into the questioning, just 10 questions today. The first one I have for you, obviously, we've talked about on the show, being from Philadelphia, around that area. So what exactly made you want to come to Oklahoma?
This is one of my favorite questions. The amount of times I've had to answer this one. No, at first it was incredible. So again, like you said, I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, right outside Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the big thing is it was my junior year of high school, and it's that time you got to start looking at what colleges you're interested in going to, and obviously, big city, big market. There's a bunch of schools locally. You got the Penn States and all that, Temple, and I keep going on and on, but me and my mom are looking at different stuff. Obviously, I had the sports media interest, and it happened where we found out Oklahoma State had a really good program, and then they had a camp. So we're like, okay, let's find a way to get to the camp, and I get to the camp, and it sold me. I love the professors I met there were great. The people I met there were great. The stuff I learned there was great, and we kept going and going. And it was a 2-week camp. Maybe just over a week. I can't remember exactly the length, but anyway, I go back home, and I always love telling this part. I think my mom expected me, go far away. I'll stay home, stay local. But I get home, and I'm like, Mom, I loved it out there. I want to go there. I applied to one other school as a safety school just in case. But once I got into Oklahoma State, I was set. Worked in their athletic department my junior and senior year there at OSU. And then luckily found a way to get here. Got my master's degree at Northwestern Oklahoma State. And that's where I am now with a full-time job.
Alrighty, and now obviously I know on the show we've talked about it before, at least I think at some point, you being the Assistant Athletic Director of Communications here at Northwestern, and I know that's a position no one really thinks about. That's not a title you may think of, one of those behind-the-scenes job, but what exactly goes into that?
Yeah, there's a lot. It's fun, and what I like about it is there's no everyday life. Each day brings something different, whether it's a game day and you have to get ready for whichever sporting events going on, you have to set up for a home game or follow the team on the road, or if there's no game, you have to get ready for what's the upcoming week. We just had our Northwestbies to honor honor all the student athletes and the yearly awards there. So just planning that kind of event, and it goes in a lot, and that's something I like about sports is each day brings something different. There's not a sit down 8 to 5 every day in an office. It's okay. You might be in your office 8 to 12, and then you got a game at 2 o'clock where you have to go get ready for, whether it's softball, baseball, football, etc. And that's one thing I like. And what goes into it is a lot of planning. You're in charge. You're running the social media. You got to keep all the fans up to date. Fan engagement, having to communicate with people who want tickets, who are out of town, and they want to get updates and everything. And one thing I've always liked writing and statting. So you get to stat all the home games and everything. You get to write previews and recaps for all the teams and sports here. And And I think that's something I like here as well at Northwestern is you got a nice balance of everything, and it's not like you're just your traditional sports or anything. It's you get a nice mix, and you get to learn a lot of different stuff. And I like working with athletes, and it creates a very dynamic atmosphere, and that's what's fun about it is there's something new every single time, every single day, and you get to work with a lot of different people. And think about it. I'm working in the athletic department with all the athletes, but then I found a way to get down here, work with you in mass communications and everything. So it's just you don't know what's gonna happen, and that's the enjoyment of being here in Oklahoma too.
And I know we've mentioned on the show several times baseball being a favorite sport of yours. Why exactly is that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously, baseball isn't the most popular sport this day and age. There's a reason why it's America's pastime. And I think for me, what really got me going on baseball was my dad. And growing up, I have 4 siblings, 2 older, 2 younger, and he was always coaching some of our teams and everything. And one thing I always enjoyed being a sports, and this sounds weird because everyone's always like, oh, I love playing. Well, I like playing, but there's a weird part of me that I like the behind-the-scenes stuff. I like keeping track of stats. I like doing all that kind of stuff. So I would try to help my dad out when he was coaching my brother's teams and stuff, and I'd show up and I'd keep the scorebook for him. So I was always there, out there, enjoying the weather, enjoying the stat side of it, keeping the book for him sometimes and everything. And he showed me how to do things, and I grew up going to games with him and everything. And that's how I found baseball to be my favorite. And I like the behind the things people might not realize. Like, yeah, obviously football, everybody likes the big hits and everything and all that stuff. But to me, I like you're in every pitch. You don't know what's going to happen. One thing can change the whole dynamic of the game. And I'm a strategy guy. And, like, I love strategy games. Like, I grew up, I like playing chess and everything, a strategy game and everything. So when you look at the managers kind of going back and forth, I loved how the strategy really, really impacted the game. I know it's transitioning, and I know we've talked about that on our show a little bit with some of the rule changes, but that's the side of it was the strategy side that really caught my eye, and then being able to work with my dad being a coach and stuff really kind of got me into baseball.
All right, and then these next 3 questions are kind of clustered together, but they all have the same theme around them. That's the culture of Philadelphia itself when it comes to sports. Obviously, we know the fans of Philadelphia notorious for booing everything, even if they don't actually. It just feels like they do. That's kind of the energy Philadelphia gives off. But the first question I have for you is, what is the most popular sport in Philadelphia? Obviously, you have your basics, your big 3 think of. Then you have the Flyers as well with the NHL. So what exactly is the most popular sport?
Yeah, I think professionally-wise, I think it's without question. I think the Eagles are the team to beat in Philadelphia, meaning they are the trigger for most fans. If you turn on sports radio in Philly, it doesn't matter whether it's April, it doesn't matter if it's January, it doesn't matter if it's July. The team that will always find a way to make in that day discussion is the Eagles. They to me, they are the most popular Philadelphia team, sports team and professional team in Philly would be the Eagles. I would say the Sixers would be the second team. In terms of like playing though, I never got the sense of football being like the most popular to play. I always felt like, and basketball is the most popular sport I would say to play and stuff growing up. I think that's the thing that everyone kind of clicked on with me and like my friends and stuff, and even family, like going outside. Like we're always trying to play basketball or something. So for, like professionally wise, it would be the Eagles, but like in terms of most popular, I think to get involved in high school and stuff was basketball.
All right, and then kind of going a bit broader to the state of Pennsylvania itself being, Philadelphia being one of the main hubs along with Pittsburgh, what would you say is the sports culture in the state of Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I would say it's still the culture is kind of energetic. People love their sports. Like that's the thing to do in Pennsylvania. And I think that the major thing is find a way to get out. A lot of games are always going to be packed. It's going to be a crazy atmosphere, and I think basketball is the main culture sports there, and you see that in high school as well with the state championship games.
And then how would you say that sports culture differs from Oklahoma? Obviously, being here for a few years now, you've got a little bit of a taste of the culture here.
No, I've got a good taste, and working in high school too. I got to work with a high school near Stillwater when I was at Oklahoma State, so that was fun too. So I got the 2 different sides of it, and it's funny. Like the culture is obviously, you would know, being from Oklahoma, is football. Where again, back home, it's basketball is the main one, I think. So I was a little of adjustment, and I remember getting in fun arguments with some of my buddies at Oklahoma State and I don't know if I ever said this to you, I'm sure I have, but I love college basketball a lot more than college football. I mean, I like college football, but college basketball is my sport there, and obviously they think I'm crazy because they're from Oklahoma and Texas, and they're all about college football and everything. So that was kind of where our cultures kind of deferred a little bit there in college.
Alrighty, and then another question I have for you. You have the Big Five in Philadelphia. Speaking of college basketball, would there be any regional differences? I know Oklahoma State here, you can kind of almost carve a line where the allegiance is. But obviously, Philadelphia just being one city, is there a certain, like, one side of town supports, Temple, another side Villanova? Maybe you get some LaSalle fans sprinkled in there or something like that.
Yeah, no, without question. And each team, like you said, the Big Five is a giant rivalry, and that's why all 5 teams play each other each year, and they create. I mean, they made it like a mini conference almost, and you get a trophy for winning the most games and winning the Big Five. They have a Big Five Player of the Week, Player of the Month, and all that stuff as well. So that's always a fun culture or a fun aspect about Philadelphia as well. And each team's got their rival. So me being a Villanova fan, I grew up, your Big Five rival, St. Joe's. They call it the Holy War. I don't know if you've heard that term before for that rivalry, but that's what they call it. So, yeah, absolutely, the regions are deferred a little bit, and it's funny. One of the knocks against Nova is it's not directly in Philadelphia. So that's one of the big knocks against Nova regionally is, and all like the rivalries, they make fun of Nova for not being in Philadelphia. I will say, though, this one quick funny thing is I never understood. There's technically, this is the funny part. For some reason, Drexel University, I don't know if you ever heard of it, they're in Philadelphia, but they're not included in the Big Five. I will never understand that, but yeah, that's another fun regional team to add in there. But no, and it's a fun history, and they used to always play all the Big Five games into Palestra and make that a fun rivalry in Penn Stadium, but that's kind of changed here in the last few years. Now they just rotate home teams.
And then, obviously, we've talked about college basketball, a bit of the culture there, but on the college football scene, I mean, it's mainly Temple. Villanova does have a team. Is there any other scene there, or is it mainly those two, and if you're not them, you're Penn State?
Yeah, that's it. That's going back to your Philadelphia versus Pittsburgh thing. That's one thing. If you go up to Pittsburgh, college football is a little more popular. Just because, yeah, you go to Philadelphia, Temple's your Philadelphia football school for college. I mean, Villanova, they have a team, but they're not D1, FCS, FBS, they're FCS. And LaSalle doesn't have a team. St. Joe's doesn't have a team. Penn, the Ivy League's obviously a smaller football team. So, obviously, you go up to Pittsburgh. Penn State's about that, close to the halfway point. So, you got a lot of Penn. Yeah, if you're not a Temple fan, you're a Penn State fan. And then, again, another kind of to go back to that question just real quick. The Pittsburgh area, them having Pitt, them having Penn State, they got a little more teams there. And being close to Ohio a little bit, they have a couple more teams to cheer for in that sense.
All right, and then the next 2 questions we have here come courtesy of this nice soundboard here. We have some soundbite questions, and the first one we have for you is from one of our own MassCom students.
What is your favorite sports moment and why?
This is a great question. My favorite professional sports moment has to be. And this is gonna be crazy. I always lean towards Villanova winning the 2016 championship, and I know Eagles just won. It was the first one, and that meant a lot too. And I'm gonna change that actually. I'm gonna go with the Eagles. But the reason why, so I got to actually fly home. I went to not the game, but growing up, we always had our uncles, cousins, and some neighbors over for Eagles games. And obviously, 20 years before you go to college and finally you get there, I had the opportunities where I flew home just to watch the game at my house, not even go to the game. I watched the game at my house. We had everybody there. It was a fun time, and seeing everyone's reaction when the Eagles finally won that Super Bowl, and you see not only your dad and your mom how happy they are, but you turn around, you see your uncle and like your uncles and aunts and everything, and they're just as happy. And what it meant to the city, and just hearing some stories from other people too was just incredible too. But yeah, that meant a lot too as well. And I will say the Eagles won. Probably edges out Villanova, but that was a special one too because of what it meant to my grandfather and everything. So.
All right, and now we're down to our final question of the day, and this one also comes courtesy from the soundboard.
When did you first start watching sports?
From a very, very young age. So, again, I don't know how I forgot to mention this actually. Back when you asked me why my favorite sport was baseball, it just came back to me. So growing up, back when before they got Citizens Bank Park, they had Veterans Stadium and stuff. One of our family traditions was parents always got us tickets to opening day. So that's why baseball became a big thing for me as well. As I grew up going to opening day almost every year before they turned it into the Citizens Bank Park and they made tickets. I mean, everyone knows how much harder they got throughout time. So in 2004 when they switched it, we still got to go every once in a while, just not as much. So that's really my first memory in terms of that is getting the opportunity to go to all those different games and opening day and everything. I'll say, I mean, because I can't pinpoint one. That's from my parents. I always watch sports. That's always my thing. And I mean, I'd wake up. People usually watching SpongeBob or something in the morning or something like that before school. No, I always had Mike and Mike in the morning on or ESPN or something on, and that's just where I was. And I know I always liked reading the newspaper too, so I was just always the sport, like that was always the part of my life was sports, and that's where I remember that would be from a young age. And then the Eagles got in the Super Bowl in '04, and again having that family kind of aspect with it as well. I know they lost that, but just that. So yeah, from a young age, the just being able to go to games, my family was the big thing that got me going.
All right. Thank you, Andrew, once again for being on. Always appreciate it. And folks, if you've enjoyed hearing what you've heard so far, feel free to give us a follow here on Twitch. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel at NWTV7. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or even TikTok. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we do have a TikTok now. Just look up NWTV7 anywhere, and you'll find us. So for Andrew Santangelo, I'm Cade Kennedy. We thank you for tuning into this portion of the broadcast. When we come back, it'll be a bit different format. Connor Gray will join us, and it will be a wonderful time. So for Andrew Santangelo, for myself, we thank you for tuning in for part one of our broadcast, and we will see you in just a few minutes. All right, everybody. We are back now with the rest of our show. So this is going to be not unusual. We've done this before plenty of times. But Andrew, he has left the building. He's got to go cheer on his Sixers tonight, make sure they don't blow a 3-0 lead against Toronto. That would be very bad. We've discussed the consequences of that already. We talked about that before the show. And for his sake, I hope it doesn't happen. But if it does, I will feel so bad for him.
I'm going to be laughing.
I know you will.
Because it's just funny.
I know, but let's get...
nothing against the Sixers, but just be funny.
Yeah, one of those, just nothing against them in general, but it's never happened before. So I don't know what we would do if someone blew a 3-0 lead. I honestly don't... I mean, I know how people would react to it.
Yeah, we know how people would react
People would clown on the Philadelphia forever, but
they'd clown on him, like be asking like, what did you want? How did you let this happen? And also depression.
Yeah, I mean that would be one of the main things associated with it. I'm certain that's what would happen, but it is one of those types of days where it's mainly just talking about the NBA. We do have the NFL draft that is coming up. That is important.
Yeah,
but I know I talked to you about this earlier today. This is the first time in a long time that I really don't care about the NFL draft for once.
Well,
that's
it's mainly because there's not as many high-touted OU players.
Mainly because I don't really I know the people obviously, but it's a more defensive-heavy draft. I would say this year you got a lot of good players, especially from Georgia and everything, and I'm excited to see where they go. Don't get me wrong, I'm excited to see that, but at the same time, Dallas is playing Utah tonight, trying to clinch a playoff series for the first time.
It's like you have something you care more about than
I'm
the
used to the playoffs being in June now for the NBA because of COVID for 2 years. So it's oh yeah, the draft is in April. The playoffs are usually in April. I forgot this used to be a conflict of interest.
Well, and typically either Mavericks wouldn't be at this point because for a long time they couldn't really make the playoffs or get out of the first round, pretty much getting beat immediately, but they have a shot of moving on.
Sir, I'll let you know we took the Thunder to Game 5 once. I'll let you know that. The other times we got swept, we don't talk about those. But one time,
I mean,
KD shot 7 for 33. It was the funniest game I've ever seen.
But obviously, there's obviously a more important game to worry about for you.
Yeah, just a little bit.
It's a little bit of history making since 2011.
Yeah,
so.
Hopefully. I don't want to start parading around that they're going to win yet because I still don't trust Dallas and Utah in Game 6. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, but kind of getting into our recap of everything that's happened since our last show. When we were leaving, recapping everything Tuesday night, we said Miami-Atlanta is a close game so far, would be a good one. And yes, it was. Miami getting a 97-94 win over Atlanta. The Heat finished that series off, and Miami moves on to the next round. Minnesota and Memphis back and forth once again. Timberwolves once again playing well, and Memphis just comes back again. Minnesota's blown a double-digit deficit, I think, every single game.
Almost every game they've blown one, and blew it at the worst possible time. It'd be one thing if they blew the lead in the first half, but the fact they're doing it late in the game is just late in the third or right sometime in the fourth is really what's killing them.
I mean, it absolutely is. It is one of those things that you hate to see it if you're a Minnesota fan. You absolutely despise it, but at the same time, it's pretty funny. That's all I can say.
It's funny when it's not your team.
I will say that it is a lot funnier when it is not your team doing it. There have been so many times I can think of.
The last few years couldn't be me.
Yeah.
Thunder haven't made the playoffs in a few years since Westbrook left.
Yeah,
so I mean, it's we garbage.
I mean, there you go. Sometimes that is the best thing.
We are, but we're getting better. We're obviously talent. We need a few more hands on deck.
Yeah, so the Thunder's getting better, slowly but surely, but they are getting better.
Probably next few years they'll probably be a playoff contender. Just got to give it some time. Especially, can they quit blowing games at the worst time? They've lost so many games really close this year. They could have easily
It won't happen.
They could have easily have at least finished higher, but obviously better draft picks this way.
Yeah,
even though obviously losing that many games was not their intention.
yeah, you got to get the tank going. I'm telling you, you got to have good old tank commander SGA.
Unlike the Rockets, we weren't even trying to. I don't think the team was even trying to tank at all. It was just like we couldn't win.
I mean, that's also a good way to tank. Just don't win. But moving on, speaking of teams that couldn't win, New Orleans losing to Phoenix 112-97. I know there are rumors that Devin Booker might come back if this series goes to Game 7. I'm not buying that.
I'm not buying it. I think they're going to hold off. He'll probably come mid-series.
I would think just hold him off. Even if he is, let's say he is healthy, I still wouldn't play him Game 7.
No, I wouldn't.
I understand, it's a do or die, but if you can't beat New Orleans, you don't deserve to go to the second round with a healthy Devin Booker.
Yep.
That's my opinion on that. And then Wednesday night, Milwaukee closes the series with Chicago 4-1. Bucks getting a 116-100 win. Giannis doing Giannis things, 33 points for him.
So basically, Milwaukee did what we all expected them to do.
Yeah, Milwaukee did what Milwaukee does, and that's roll over people. Chicago got their one win against the Bucks all year. They went 1-8 against Milwaukee this year.
I will say the team overall for Chicago, I know it's their first year with the current core that they have, that they'll have for at least the next few years. Maybe, depending on how
Hopefully.
things go. But they're going in the right direction. Just give them another year, they'll be a much better team.
They absolutely will. I think
overall they overachieved. I understand that you have Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and good amount of role players that play really well. But I think in my opinion, they overachieved as a team in certain aspects. You had players that I think they were just expecting at least just make it as one of the bottom seeds. Even though yes, they ended up where they're at. It's like in my opinion, I still feel like they just overperformed as an entire team.
I think Chicago's problem was they started out too well.
Yeah.
Like when you start 29-11, everyone's like, oh, they're going to be top 3 in the East. This is so easy. And then they got hit with injuries and then ran into the gauntlet of here's the Sixers, Heat, Bucks, Celtics.
They hit the part of the schedule that was really hard.
They played a difficult part of the schedule, and then Zach LaVine gets injured, and then Alex Caruso gets injured, and then it's just everything started tumbling down, and their season comes to an unfortunate end.
I think they'll be back next year and be a better team.
They absolutely will. And then the next game, Golden State closing it out against Denver, 102-98. Stephen Curry and Nikola Jokic just dueling once again. Curry hitting some big shots late, waving bye to the Nuggets. And, I mean, he won't be waving bye to them, all of them. Jokic is expected to sign a 5-year Supermax deal worth, I believe, $264 million over 5 years, which, I mean, makes sense.
Makes sense.
They're going to throw all the money they can at him. Of course, he's going to take it.
That man is your team, basically.
As of right now, with no Jamal Murray and no Michael Porter Jr., of course, with injuries, he has to be the entire team. When they get back, though,
it's like
Nuggets will be good.
With or without him, he's still the best player on that team.
Yeah, easily. I mean, you don't usually have multiple MVP candidates on one team.
I mean, there's a reason why he won the MVP last year. So, obviously, we'll see how it goes for Denver for next season. But congrats to Golden State for moving on.
Yep, they have played wonderfully so far, with the exception of one game where they gave up 126. But you have a dud every once in a while. It's the playoffs. Beating an NBA caliber team is always hard to get in a sweep, unless you're Boston, apparently.
Well, the thing is, all those games were very competitive. It just Boston was just on the best side of that end.
Yeah. So moving on to tonight's games, we've already got one going, and Toronto up 15-14 on Philadelphia right now in the first quarter. This game on NBA TV right now.
So no one's watching this.
So Andrew is the only person watching this. Shout out to him. I mean, you look at the stats right now. Obviously, Harden already with 6, Tyrese Maxey with 3, Embiid with 2, Tobias Harris with a 3 already. And you look at Toronto, what they're doing so far. Scotty Barnes with 4, your Rookie of the Year candidate. I mean, Toronto's been hyping that kid up all year, and they have every reason to. He's played wonderfully. Pascal Siakam, triple-double watch early. He's already got 2, 2, and 2. As first course, so triple-double watch in effect. I'm calling it early. But Gary Trent Jr. so far with 7 for the Raptors. So if he can keep it going, then who knows what's going to happen in this one. But as we look at stats and everything, Philadelphia was a 1-point favorite in this game. And so I know it's already gone for, just a little over 5 minutes of game time, but who do we think wins this one?
I think, obviously, too early. It's obviously really early, but I think Sixers late will eventually overtake Toronto and finally close the series out. But if this goes to Game 7, all pressure's on Philly. No pressure's on Toronto.
I would say Toronto doesn't even have any pressure now. You're just happy to not get swept. And, they use the motivation from losing Game 3. Imagine if they don't lose Game 3 and it's Toronto trying to close Philly out. That's got to be their mindset. We had a game stolen from us. We can still win this series, though. You take one game from us, we take 4 from you.
Yeah. And they're going to be like I think will it be the first team that comes back from a 3-0 deficit?
It would be the first time in the history of the NBA. There have been 3 other times in history where a team has come back from 3-0 to tie it, most recently in 2003. This would be the 4th time ever in the NBA that happens.
The thing is, no one's actually won the series coming back from that.
No one has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit to win 4-3. But if it happens, my goodness, history would be made, and it would be another chapter in the Sixers-Raptors rivalry. It would be one of the most insane things I think we've ever seen in basketball, period. And I also want to, I know this is I talked to you about this earlier. This is a stat I saw today. This is the first time in 5 years in the Eastern Conference a first-round series has gone more than 5 games. Let that sink in. Mm-hmm. The East almost always is a sweep or 5-game series in the first round. Almost always has been in recent memory.
Yeah.
So, congrats to Toronto for not falling in that trap after getting down 3-0. They're just living on borrowed time at this point, and you know what? I'm going to say they win tonight. I'm riding with the momentum of the Raptors. I feel like they're starting out good enough. Harden's doing his thing. I think you rather let Harden beat you than Embiid. I think that's personally the right call.
Yeah.
I see Embiid as more of a threat. If you can make, Tobias Harris or Tyrese Maxey silent on pretty much the entire game or, just corner them as much as you can.
Yeah.
I don't know. Try to make anyone else beat you. Make Danny Green try to beat you. They don't have Matisse Thybulle there today because of COVID restrictions. So this is your best chance to beat Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And if you can corner them, you get a Game 7 where you have no pressure.
Exactly.
And, that's the exact scenario you want for Toronto. I wouldn't say getting down 3-0 is the best idea, but for the situation they were in, they have things a lot better than most teams down 3-2 would be.
Exactly. For me, even though I'm picking Philly to finally close it out, once I can agree. I can easily see.
It's a coin flip game.
7.
Once you get to these Game 5, 6, and
this will come down to basically mainly for Philly. If Harden just goes off, if Harden isn't doing what he's capable of doing, I see this going back to Philly.
Yeah. Oh boy, that will be entertaining. That's all I could say about that.
It's gonna be a packed arena full of Sixers fans, basically gonna be almost about to rip their hair out.
Doc Rivers literally might get fired and yanked out of Wells Fargo Center.
So basically,
if they lose games, it feels kind of bad. I've seen so many people it's a foregone conclusion Toronto will win tonight and want to talk about if Philadelphia loses Game 7. But, Philadelphia could still win tonight and it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
But I think the way this I'm a big momentum-based person.
Yeah.
I love it. And I think it has a more of a factor than most people, but I think if they can get it tonight, Toronto very well might pull this off.
Refresh the page, see if
they're at a timeout, I think, but we can refresh it here.
Just in case. Just in case.
You never know. Okay, it is 18:15.
All right.
ESPN lied to me. How dare you, ESPN? Makes me sad. But 18:15 right now. Let's see. I guess if someone on the bench did something for Philadelphia because now their stats have changed.
It reverted back to what the previous score.
Yeah, okay. Tobias Harris scored. There we go. That's what happened. All righty. Moving on to the next game of tonight. Phoenix taking on New Orleans. This should be an entertaining one as well. Game 6 in the Big Easy. No one really knowing what's going to happen in this one. Phoenix a 3-point favorite. can the Pelicans hold serve and force a Game 7?
They easily could. I mean, we've seen them play this series. They're pushing the Suns to the limit. I mean, I know the Suns are obviously Booker going out at the worst time, but it's like Suns can still win without him. They've been able to do it all year. So it's like you don't really need him to win this game. You can easily do what you did the games you played without him. You can do what you did in I believe it was it Game 3 or 4 they won?
New Orleans won Game 4.
Okay, so Game 3 and then obviously Game 5.
Yeah.
You can do Suns can easily do this without him and actually win relatively easy.
Yeah, so if you look at the counter here, they've been trading off win, loss, win, loss, win, loss.
So
it's a perfect pattern.
I think it snaps tonight where Phoenix actually closes it out.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to see this go to Game 7 just to see how nerve-wracking it's going to be, because that pressure is all on the Suns. Because New Orleans, they literally weren't even.
They're just happy to be here.
Yeah, pretty much.
They're just happy to win a play-in game.
Yeah. So
and they're here.
Yeah. So for obviously, if New Orleans could win tonight, but I just don't see it happen. I think the pressure is going to be too much. I think Suns overcome the pressure to finally close them out and move on.
Well, I'm going to say Phoenix wins as well. The big news, obviously, this just dropped a few minutes ago. Devin Booker has gotten the official okay to return tonight. So they're going to try to play Devin Booker tonight.
I would put him on limited minutes.
I would too. I don't think that's the best thing in the world for him. I know you want to bring him in so you can win the series and get it over with and rest more and then pray Mavs Jazz goes Game 7. But you can afford to lose. I mean, this sounds bad, but you can afford to lose tonight.
Yeah.
There's no risk taken losing tonight because I think they're the better team anyways.
Yeah, they're the better
even without Devin Booker.
Because going back to Phoenix, that they'll have a home advantage in the crowd being on their side.
Yeah.
And I think the Suns play much better at home anyways. So it's one of those things where it's like they could easily just drop the game tonight if they wanted to, but I think they're better off not playing Devin Booker. If you do play him, keep him on a time restraint, only play him limited minutes, very little if possible, and hopefully Chris Paul, Ayton, and everyone else on the bench and the other starters do what they can. And I think they're capable of doing it without him. That's why I don't really agree with this decision.
Yeah, I mean, I don't either. I think it's a bit silly to let it happen when you have that extra game in hand, but I understand the move behind it, but I just cannot agree with it.
We can't agree with
it. And then 9 o'clock tonight, Dallas taking on Utah. I'm excited. This is one of those weird ones. Donovan Mitchell was a day-to-day. I think he'll play tonight. Everything points to Donovan Mitchell playing tonight. But you look at this spread line here, it is a pick'em tonight. It is a literal coin toss in Vegas's mind. I mean, you always go with usually Vegas grants 3 points to the home team. So if you take that in mind, Dallas would be the favorite in this one, which would make New Orleans even worse at like 6-point underdogs. But, Vegas has its ways, and having this one as a pick'em tonight, I am really excited to see how this game goes. I'm ready to be hurt again by this basketball team. Every year we get to this point where Dallas gets on the brink, and I usually stop and think about what the year has been so far leading up to this, and this is the first time in a while where I don't feel defeated and be like, we're going into Utah. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a hostile crowd. I was like, we already won here. We won here without Luka. I'm not scared of this anymore.
No,
I don't fear this Jazz team. They're wounded.
And the thing is that overall, the Mavs are a better team up to down. Like, if you just look at the scores, like, if you put them all together, Mavs have outscored them by a solid margin. I mean, the last game they played, 102-77 win for Dallas.
And not only that, I want to talk about that game just a little bit more. The Utah looked terrible. Like, obviously, you score 77 points in a game. That's not good by any means in the NBA. But they looked like they were ready to leave after the second quarter. They looked like they just wanted to go home.
Utah.
And so, like, the third quarter just turned into the Mavs just having their way. Luka hit, like, 2 back-to-back step-back threes from 30 feet. And it was a 25-point game, and you just saw the Jazz just, we're done. We don't care anymore. Get us out of here.
They're just hoping to regroup in Utah. That's basically what it is. They just couldn't. They had no answers for Dallas that last game. But it's like they've won without Luka in Utah and have played, and everyone else has just played phenomenally well. From their other starters to the bench, they've all played much better when they needed to. And I don't think it's going to be any different. I think even if Donovan Mitchell does play, it's not going to be enough. I think Dallas takes it.
I'm going to give a hot take. I think Donovan Mitchell needs to play if Dallas wants to win this game. If you saw how Donovan Mitchell played in Game 5, he had 9 points. Every time he wanted to take an ISO 3, Dallas just started letting him because he was going to miss.
No, what I mean is like even with him.
I know what you mean, but if I'm Dallas, I kind of want him to play. I think he's in his own head right now.
Yeah.
He tries to do the hero ball thing, refuses to pass to Rudy Gobert. So the Mavs have been able to just, okay, we don't have to guard their two best players. We can go stop Bojan Bogdanovic. We can go stop Royce O'Neal. We can go stop Mike Conley. We can just sit here. You can't stop us.
Exactly.
And I think that's the attitude Dallas is going to bring tonight, and I think the Mavs get the win, and you will see a very happy Cade on Tuesday. I hope. If they win the series in general, which will either be today or Saturday if they win the series, and that's a big if still. It's still a big ask. But you'll see very happy Cade on Tuesday. I might actually have to bring the Mavs hat out for once, but moving on to the next. I think we're both.
I was expecting you just to bring a Luka jersey in here.
I will bring a lifelike Luka Doncic poster and just put it somewhere in this room, and then everyone's gonna be like, "What happened here?" I'm gonna be like, "Luka happened. This is Luka magic, folks. This is Doncic's time." But I think we're both in agreement Dallas takes this one tonight. And then the lone Friday game to talk about. We're getting to this point in the year. No Steven Adams for Memphis in this one, which will hurt a little bit. Memphis trying to close it out in Minnesota. This has been another back-and-forth wacky series. Grizzlies are a 1-point favorite in this one. And I know with injuries and everything, it hurts Memphis a bit. But with the way this series is gone, it means nothing.
It really means nothing. I mean, it's like I know you're missing Steven Adams, but really the other guys are mainly just role guys you don't really need to worry as much about. So I think Memphis overall is fine on their depth and starting group, and because I know Steven Adams obviously they're mainly for as obviously your post player that you need, but I think they'll be fine. I don't think they'll have that much to worry about in regards to the Timberwolves, since the Timberwolves can't get out of their own way.
The Timberwolves can get out of their own way, but only for about 15 minutes. Then they have to get back in their own way again.
Exactly.
And I honestly almost predict Minnesota will get up 20 in this game. They'll be riding high. And Memphis will go on like a 30-2 run, and then Minnesota will just implode in the fourth quarter or something like that.
I think
then my prediction of Grizzlies in 6 somehow comes.
Memphis will take it, I believe. I mean, I'm sorry. It's like after seeing that Morant basically jump over a guy, that's just like, wow.
Yeah.
Basically had the best dunk of the year.
Yeah, I mean, the dunk of the year. And then he had the game winner as well. Mm-hmm. I just don't think you can stop Ja Morant like that. So I think Memphis wraps it up Friday, and then we get into – I'm not really going to get into games that may or may not happen because I think that's a bit silly to predict.
Yeah.
So that is all for the NBA today. I do want to get into the NHL a little bit because, ladies and gentlemen, it is over. Everyone is in. We have clinched every ticket.
Thank you, Dallas.
Yeah, thank you, Dallas. I want to give double credit to Dallas because they did this in the most painful way possible. They beat the Golden Knights in a shootout, which gave Vegas a point, which clinched everyone but Dallas, and Dallas proceeded to nearly lose to Arizona last night, but forced it to overtime to get the point to seal it off, and then proceeded to lose. But with that 1 point, Dallas losing to Arizona, the worst team in the league, nearly. Thank you, Montreal. But Dallas is with one more game played than Nashville, has a 1 point lead on them. So hold on to your seats for this final NHL race. Same thing with Minnesota and St. Louis. Minnesota still has to play Colorado and Nashville. St. Louis does not have to play Colorado. They just got done playing them and lost 5-3 with, I mean, you get an open net goal at the end for the Avs. So, I mean, good job, Avs. What else do you want me to say about them? They're the best team in hockey.
They are the best team in hockey. I mean, it's like,
Florida's a pretty good second, but Colorado's the best team in hockey.
he's right as of the regular season.
Yeah.
Once we get to playoffs, that won't mean
Once we get to the playoffs, it means nothing, yeah.
Because that's one thing I think what makes NHL playoffs more fun is that it doesn't matter how good you are.
It
'Cause
really means nothing.
You could have the biggest momentum going into the playoffs, and somehow you get stopped by probably the worst team in that playoff.
Yeah, you can be Tampa Bay and get beat by Columbus, who managed to eke into the playoffs, and then everyone dunks on you because you're the number one team and you got swept.
You got
by Columbus
by the Jackets,
and then you can have St. Louis go from worst to first in the span of 4 months. Go from the worst team in the league in January, sneak into the playoffs as the second to last wild card and go on a wild run all the way to the Stanley Cup. And you can have Montreal, who did it last year, 4 seed in their division, somehow come back to beat Toronto on the brink of death. They come back, win that series, and then run through the other Canadian teams and make a run all the way.
And I think the really best part about it, because obviously they had to get moved to to the West Division since they're
Montreal
they're in Quebec.
Montreal known for being in the West. This would be like if we put New York and LA in the same division. Just for people who don't understand Canadian geography, this would be like if the Yankees and Dodgers were both in the NL West. Like this is big brain strategy
because
over
of
here.
the COVID year, because of how they set everything up after the COVID season that they had in their little bubble when they finally reopened it up to where they were playing relatively a normal season.
Yeah.
But basically teams to keep they kept the Canadian teams together, which got moved to the West Division, and basically had to do a little circle. And so the best part was that Montreal, Montreal got the conference trophy named after a founder that's from.
Yep. Yeah, the one of the most Eastern teams won the West in one of the weirdest years.
Yeah,
Thank you, COVID.
And I really wanted them to beat Tampa, but there was no way they were going to win.
Yeah, they needed a lot more miracles to beat Tampa.
I mean, it was just a miracle for them even to get that far.
Yes, it was just I don't even know what was happening. But what I can tell you, looking at stuff in the East, Florida obviously has clinched the number 1 overall seed, and Toronto has locked up the 2. Tampa Bay and Boston, with 2 games left, the Bruins can overtake the Lightning, but if the Lightning win either of their next 2 games, they will clinch a date with Toronto. Oh, boy.
Oh, boy, yeah.
If you're the Maple Leafs.
If Capitals could play it right, they could jump the Penguins.
Yeah, they could. That was the next one. Carolina has won the Metro. The Rangers have clinched the 2 spot, but the battle between the Pens and the Caps, I mean, one more chapter to the Crosby-Ovi rivalry because, of course, that has to happen. The battle for who gets the Rangers is going to be an interesting battle, and the loser gets treated with Florida. So not a fun consolation prize if you don't win that battle. Boston, Tampa Bay are battling. The first wild card would play Carolina there.
Yeah.
And then in the West, Colorado at the moment would play Nashville. Calgary would play Dallas, with Colorado having 118 points. And, I mean, there's nothing set in stone there. Dallas and Nashville have clinched officially, so the Central will get 5 teams in this year, the Pacific only getting 3. The Oilers will play the Kings in the first round. We don't know where yet because they're close enough in points that it might change. But Calgary will host one of the wild card teams, whether it be Dallas or Nashville. Mm-hmm. And then Colorado would play the other one. And Minnesota and St. Louis are destined to play each other in what will be the most exhausting series because they have been tied all year in points, it feels like. St. Louis has won every time, and then they'll turn around and lose to Columbus for no reason. I don't understand it. I really don't. They'll beat Minnesota, they'll jump a game or 2 over them, then they'll lose to, the Islanders or the Devils, and it's just like, why?
So typical fashion.
Yes, the Blues are really good about beating good teams and then losing to the worst teams. I'm so glad.
That reminds me of the Capitals.
I'm so glad that Anaheim and Seattle cannot make the playoffs because the Blues would find a way to lose to them.
Exactly.
And then they would turn around and beat Colorado for no reason. That's how the Blues
That's just
play.
how it happens.
That's just Blues things. I don't know why, but it's just what they do. And then getting to it in just about 25 minutes, round one of the NFL draft. I can't believe we're already here. We're already to this time of the year. ESPN's set to go. The Jags have the number 1 pick. All eyes are on Aiden Hutchinson, the 6'7", 260-pound defensive end out of Michigan. But, and this is a big but, Jacksonville's not expected to take him number 1.
And that's the one thing is like all of a sudden another thing is for the longest time he was like the number 1 guy. He was on everyone's overall. Then all of a sudden a few days ago they're like, oh we think it's going to be someone else that's going to get it. I'm like, why would you pass up on a guy who's arguably the best defensive player in this entire draft?
I do.
But then again, that could come down to what the Jags actually need.
Yeah, I do want to mention a few things. We're probably going to get out of here before the draft starts. But I do want to say, I know Trayvon Walker, the defensive end out of Georgia, or D lineman, he can play both, out of Georgia. That's who the Jags are expected to take. That's at least the rumor I've heard. I do want to mention this, too. Deebo Samuel to the Jets is not out of the realm of possibility if we see that trade tonight. The Jets could trade the 10th pick to San Francisco to make that happen. That is a very real possibility, I've been told earlier today. And Adam Schefter reported, he was talking to a league executive who said, this is going to be the craziest draft we've had in over 30 years today. This is supposed to be a crazy one. And then in other news, the Giants are the Giants. They did not pick up Daniel Jones' contract. They did not pick up the 5th-year extension on that today. Kyler Murray got his yesterday with Arizona.
Yeah.
Danny Jones, he did not. Giants not a fan of Danny Dimes, confirmed.
That I'm not real. It's like I know people. It's like obviously I'm not a Giants fan, and I like seeing New York be miserable anyways. But Daniel Jones was a solid was at least solid for the most part. I mean, he had his moments where he wasn't that great, but it's like he wasn't a bad quarterback by any stretch of the imagination. He wasn't like Eli most of the time, where Eli wasn't really that great. Besides when he actually won a Super Bowl, but it's like Daniel Jones was solid. I just never really understood. I just like, to me, it's like I would have picked up the 5th-year option, but unless Giants are thinking about getting a quarterback or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, I really don't know. The NFL draft is always one of those weird times because you never know what's going to happen in this thing. There are so many weird moves that have been made. The Bears trading to move up 2 spots to get Trubisky.
They only moved up
or
one
actually, yeah.
They moved up. They were the 3rd pick and somehow duped themselves into believing that Trubisky was going to get taken by Frisco, despite Frisco had no intentions of getting Trubisky. It wasn't even on their radar. I mean, they ended up picking up a defensive player in the process. So it was like, what is wrong? Chicago is just going to be Chicago. Plus that Chicago did the right thing getting rid of that general manager, because his reasoning for picking Trubisky was by far the dumbest of reasons. It had nothing to do with Trubisky's playing.
But he's the best quarterback. This is what Bears fans told me. He's the best quarterback.
No.
He's the best quarterback since Jay Cutler.
I mean, versus the ones that came after Cutler, yeah, you can make that argument.
Yeah, I really don't know what the Bears will do. We do not have our local Bears expert with us today. He's busy, living his life. I'm not sure if he would ever come in here to do a show. I don't even know if he knows we do this show, but I really don't have anything else for tonight. I know this is a bit of a shorter stream, and I know it's something we don't do often, but on nights like this, we've got the NFL draft coming up. I'm sure we'll recap it all when we get back on Tuesday.
Yep.
It will be a crazy time. But tomorrow, I do want to let you know, before I get out of here, tomorrow, you are going to want to be here. Friday night, 7 o'clock, my friend Josh and I, another episode of The Bottom of the Barrel. It'll be our season finale before we go on hiatus for a while. You are not going to want to miss this, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to watch, quite possibly, the dumbest movie I have ever seen in my life. Actually, 2 of the dumbest movies I've ever seen in my life. It's Donald Trump versus the Illuminati, people. I mean, you're going to want to see this. That's all I'm saying is, if you're out there, set a reminder on your phone, whatever you need to do, follow us here, get your notifications set up, click whatever you need to. You are not going to want to miss tomorrow's show. I guarantee you that. We're watching 2 amazingly bad movies, making fun of them. It is going to be probably the most fun we have ever had on this show. So I would encourage you to tune in and watch that tomorrow. It is going to be an absolute blast. We might even have a special guest on that show as well. You never know who might pop on that broadcast tomorrow. But it is going to be a very, very fun show. No, we're not going to watch Dumb and Dumber, Mike and Perkins. We might one day. We might get around to it. It's not the dumbest movie, but
it's a great movie.
It's not the dumbest movie. Believe me, you've never seen what you're about to see if you come in tomorrow. But until next time, for Connor Gray, I'm Cade Kennedy. If you liked what you heard so far this evening, you can give us a follow here on Twitch. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, NWTV7. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram or even on TikTok. That is right, ladies and gentlemen. We do have a TikTok. They post content sometimes. I honestly don't know how much. I need to keep an eye on that probably better. But until next time, we will see you in the future. I don't know when. We might be back Monday. We might be back Tuesday. We might be back Saturday. I don't know. We will be here sometime. But until then, enjoy the NFL draft and the NBA playoffs. And have a great night, everybody.